I showed you a tweet from Ron DeSantis a few minutes ago. He sent out on Friday where he said he hopes other states follow Florida's lead in eliminating DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, before this bill was even passed last summer. He went as far as to say DEI is, quote, better viewed as standing for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that it has no place in our public institutions. When you hear that, your reaction?
Well, it's utterly ridiculous. It's ahistorical. This is why this governor has been at the helm, leading the charge to de-emphasize history. I thought right-wing conservatives, to their credit, were invested in history. I thought conservative politicians wanted to keep the government out of people's bedrooms, out of their schoolrooms, to allow the process of education to occur organically. And yet here is a governor trying to ban books, trying to keep at bay history about African-American people, trying to politicize advanced placement in terms of African-American studies, not just African-American history, but African-American studies.
Now, I thought that DEI meant that the government is going to be more in the lives of the people.
So the whole issue about DEI is sort of strange because people keep saying it doesn't exist and then it does exist. And then they say that it's a college level course and it isn't taught in schools. But then they can find sort of remnants of certain grade levels in which the concepts of DEI are taught in the classroom. Maybe not the college level curriculum, but the concepts are taught in the classroom. And I don't think, and I'm not shilling for Republicans on this, I don't think any Americans in good conscience and people of good conscience have any problem with history. We all want history to be taught. We want the factual, actual history, and particularly Black people should have no concern about history being taught, and Republicans particularly, because Black people and Republicans have a very great history. When you go back, you can go back to Lincoln, you can go back to Reconstruction, you can go back to the Civil War. So there isn't any reason for Republicans to be hiding history in terms of their shame with Black people. In fact, if that were the case, it would more likely be Democrats that need to hide, who have advanced a false narrative. And the narrative is that white people made you slaves, kept you in slaves. White people had you in Jim Crow. White people had you taking poll tests and literacy tests. And in fact, it wasn't white people who did that. It was Democrat white people. So Democrat white people have been hiding behind white people for all of these years.
I was about to say the same thing. Everything you just now said, I promise you I was about to say the same thing, but since you said it, let's go ahead and continue. We have been teaching people how to grow online. It's been absolutely amazing. We have 3 people who have been able to reach monetization in less than 30 days. Growing YouTube channels, some from 0 people. We have one guy who had 2 subscribers before he started working with me. He started helping him. His views went up 4.8 million%. We're super excited. If anybody ever want to grow on YouTube, you reach out to me with the word coach.
Demonizing and stigmatizing the very open inquiry that should be the hallmark and the benchmark of education. So the reason DEI exists in the first place, not perfect by any means, but certainly a powerful measure to remedy what's the opposite of diversity? Homogenization. What's the opposite of equity? Inequality. What's the opposite of inclusion? Exclusion. So DEI exists because of the history of bigotry, white supremacy, the resistance to the inclusion of African-American people. Without DEI, Michael Jordan wouldn't have been what he was on the basketball court because he would have been excluded, and Stephen A. Smith couldn't be the king of media right now because he would have been written out of the laws that permitted him to do so. So when I hear Governor DeSantis, I hear a man who is typical of what happened after enslavement, after slavery, when Reconstruction happened. The biggest voices claiming that giving any sense of support to African-American people were those conservative brothers and sisters from the Confederate who were incapable of acknowledging we got to share the tools of life, the toys of life in the sandlot and the sandbox of life with others we have historically denied. I'm afraid Governor DeSantis is following in their footsteps.
And the problem with this is exactly what I said. They hide behind words. Who was the Confederacy? What party was the Confederacy?
Oh, so that's always been the Democrats?
It has always been the Democrats. The Republicans were founded as an anti-slavery party. That is all they got together and said, we've got to stop slavery. What should we do? Start a party. So they started a party. That was the whole basis for how they were founded. So I'm fine with that. It's history. It's all of our history, and parts of it are wonderful, and certainly parts of it are ugly. I'm not saying that we should be ashamed, but I am saying, like Michael Eric Dyson, tell the truth. Who is the Confederacy?
Well, he can't tell the whole truth because then, well, he's telling the truth from his perspective because, like he said, he wants to focus on the opposite of everything that DEI stands for. He want to focus on those because he's saying because of those opposites, though, that's the reason why he's fighting the fight that he is right now.
Well, he's fighting the fight because he is a proponent, at least as far as this conversation is concerned, of the myth that has pervaded education, academia, and has spread throughout the culture and the society, which is that all cultures are the same, all people are the same, and that there can be no judgment. Well, we know that that's not true because that's the absence of the opposite of exactly what was said in the Bible. You are supposed to actually have discernment. You are supposed to judge. And how you know whether or not all things are the same is that things that are the same produce the same outcome. Their fruit looks alike. So it can't be that all cultures are the same because all cultures don't produce the same outcome. Now, that's not to say that they need to. All cultures don't have to produce the same outcome, but you can't fool me and tell me that everybody's the same when it is in fact that they're not, because their outcomes are not the same. And what this seeks to do, or what it seems like they are seeking to do, is to try and rejigger what is natural, which, like he said, would organically happen, and actually circumvent that and try and find a system to create equal outcomes when equal outcomes are not a natural thing that happens. That's just not natural. You can look in your own family, you're among your own siblings, among your own friends, people who were your classmates. You might have been, you graduated with 100 people. All the people you graduated with, you can look at them now in life. They're not all living the same life, yet they probably got the same or similar education. They certainly had access and were exposed to similar education. And I personally think Stephen A. Smith should be offended because what Michael Eric Dyson failed to do is that Michael Jordan, part of the reason Michael Jordan is who he is, not only because there some laws changed that gave him some possibilities that theretofore he wouldn't have had, but also because he had talent and he sat around and shot the ball in the dark till the streetlights came home so he could perfect it. Stephen A. is not new in this game. He didn't jump up and become the top in his field for no reason. There's some talent, there's some discipline, there's some preparation. And as soon as Michael Eric Dyson starts to talk about that, he can get me on board.
Wow. He did. That was a slap in the face to Stephen A.
That's an insult. That is an insult because what that actually does, and it's so amazing. It's so amazing that people who have such reverence and spend so much time thinking about race, what they really reveal is that they do have a sense of inferiority because they don't believe that merit can actually take you anywhere. That in fact, it is only but for the assistance of the so-called racist whites, the Confederates, now Democrats, whatever we're calling them, but it's only with the assistance of the racist whites and their institutions, their academic institutions, their government institutions, their cultural institutions, by which we can achieve success. I'm offended by that.
The white man saved us. And if it wasn't for the white man saving us, there wouldn't have been no Michael Jordan. There wouldn't have been no Stephen A. Wow, that's so disrespectful right there.
That is an absolute insult. I fear that Stephen A. is not going to be able to be insulted because he can't figure it out, because he thinks somebody's advocating for him for being Black, which might be true. But what he doesn't realize is that Michael Eric Dyson is disrespecting him for being Stephen.
Bars.